Hey, welcome back to Evil's Comics. This guy right here is Evil Mike, and this is going to be my review overview on Night Terrors Week 8. We got some more books to go through. This is the final week besides the last issue, Night's End, which I'm going to do separately. But before we get started, please like, comment, subscribe on this guy's channel. It does help. Hit the bell. You never know when I'm going to be dropping videos. But before we, let's get into it, So all the artists and writers and all that this stuff is going to be in the description below if you're interested in looking at who wrote it or, who did the letters. Also, there's going to be a timestamp below if you want to skip to any issues, in case you didn't read one or did read one. Alright, so first up we got Dawn of DC's Night Terrors, and this is issue number 4, the Darkest Hour variant cover. We basically start off with Boston Brand again, and each one's been in a different scenario. I want to point out that he's reading his own books, but basically he's stating that most stories, everybody tries to give a story a happy ending, but when it comes to horror stories, there are no victors or winners. It's really just survivors, and it kind of leaves off at that. We start off in Arkham Tower with Boston Brand, currently residing in Batman, and then we got the Sandman and Robin, and they're basically making their way through Arkham Tower. They have the Nightmare Stone now, and basically they are making their way to the top of the tower to find Insomniac's body. Once they find Insomniac's body, basically the plan is Boston Brand's going to go in there and wake him up, and then supposedly it's going to wake up everybody. There is a moment while they're walking up the Arkham Tower, and all of a sudden, Batman, Deadman, happens to do this weird thing trying to trick Robin. But Robin isn't fooled. He ends up killing this version of, quick version of Insomniac, when we find out Robin actually fell asleep while he was walking the stairs, but woke himself up out of it. As they go up, it's like, basically the tower and Insomniac is trying to mess with the crew. They finally do get to his body, and as soon as they get there, basically they perform the ritual. Deadman heads in there with the Nightmare Stone, trying to go to the one memory that Insomniac had hidden, and we basically find out it's an origin story. It's Insomniac, who he was, his family beforehand, and basically, they were chilling. They got a notice to evacuate because Justice League was fighting something. We do find out it's because of the Death Metal series. They mentioned the Justice League were fighting a whole bunch of Batmen. But because they didn't evacuate, his whole house and everything and his family ends up dying. He's the only survivor, and basically we find out that was his nightmare before he got his powers, losing his family in a horrific situation, and now basically he's returning it to the world kind of thing. Justice League was the reason that his family died, so basically he's trying to call the heroes out. At this point we get a little bit of a turn, though. It seems that Insomniac had all this planned out from the get-go. This was part of the plan. Insomniac wasn't really looking for the stone. He was just waiting for Boston Brand to bring it back. Now that Boston Brand brought it back, he does the last thing that he needs to do is a sacrifice for the Nightmare Stone, and basically that's what he does. He kills himself in this nightmare world, which ends up killing his real body, and basically unleashing this massive, he makes all the nightmares exist in the real world at this point. We go back to Boston Brand, and he's kind of narrating, telling us, hey, I kind of warned you about the horror story kind of thing, and the survivors. We go back to the scene. Basically all the heroes and everybody is waking up. It's showing us that everybody got woke up out of their nightmares all at the same time. We catch up to the scene which we saw in the last issue, when Batman's waking up. Basically Deadman's been kicked out of him. We find out what happens to Deadman real quickly, but basically at this point they've lost, and now it's Batman and Damian and whoever else is awake trying to fix it. At this point we do see that Damian and Wesley Dodds, the Sandman, are kind of tied up in this new nightmare world kind of thing. Last but not least, but he brings all his, like, you know, the generals and the knights from the nightmares and stuff to the real world, and that's where it ends, basically telling us that it's going to continue in the Night's End thing. Next up, we got Night Terror's Titans, issue number 2. And we get a lot of answers in this one. We're waking up with all the Titan characters. We got Beast Boy, we got, you know, and basically we find out that it's Beast Boy asking them all if they all saw the same thing, and they kind of answer they did all see nightmare versions of them. We find out this is a conversation that's happening with the nightmare versions of, you know, whatever's going on. We quickly find out finally what's going on. It is and it's the one girl that I didn't know who she was. She is a, like, metaphysical version of the Titan's Tower, and we learn like right here that basically, and we kind of knew this before, the Titan Tower was a prison before it was a tower, shown here, and basically was made into Titan's Tower after, you know, it was abandoned as a prison or whatever. When the nightmare wave hit, basically it hit the tower, and with all kind of like ghosts and stuff like that, but with all the horror stuff going on, there was so much hatred reside in the tower that it literally physically manifested like a physical person of itself, kind of thing. So that's who that girl is, and that's how she was able to, like, rescue everybody from their nightmares, kind of thing. That's because she was the tower, and, you know, they're basically in the tower's nightmare, is how this book explains it. So at this point, it's basically like the Titans, you know, telling this chick, and we don't have a name on her yet, but we do at the end of the book, which is kind of cool. But basically, you know, hey, you gotta, you know, wake yourself up out of this nightmare, kind of thing, which she eventually does. She, like, cuts a hole into this reality. And eventually she makes it to the core, which she finds out is herself, and it's still the tower, like, being mad, you know, because it used to be a prison and stuff like that. And basically this version of the tower telling her, hey, that's why we're different and better, because we get the Titans, and they're showing us that the world can be better, and it's not all full of this hatred kind of stuff. After that, once she does that, that's basically where they wake up, and at the very end, they're seen taking off to go help everybody else that's been asleep, kind of thing. And it says this one will continue in Night's End. Next up, we got Night Terror's Detective Comics issue number 2. This one was fantastic. I mean, of course, the art. Going back to this, it was about 3 people that had did a ritual, and kind of started this whole deal that we're going in. We find a lot about what's going on, and basically Detective Gordon, he was somehow a part of the ritual because he had found it and got sucked into it, but we find out that somebody had, you know, had made a wish finding this old clock, and it basically made these people appear. They do give us a name of these people. They're called the Pentera Priests. And I'll kind of mention them later, but basically they get summoned by this person. They find out that the ritual needs 3 people. They do bring the 3 people as shown here. They each get a wish granted, which we saw. 1 wish for wealth, 1 wish for information, 1 wish for power. So we kind of see all that going on. We do know that Detective Gordon got pulled into this because he happened to come across the ritual or whatever. We find out most of this from this letter that this lady left, the one that was bleeding out diamonds. She was the one who wished for wealth. Each one of them are finding out that making this wish, you know, basically has a, you know, a deal that goes along with it. That lady wished for wealth, and all of a sudden she was choking up diamonds, and it killed her. We find out who this is, and it's not Bruce Wayne or Batman. It's this other guy named Morgan Etch or Morgan Retch or something like that. But he's basically, he owns like a security firm or something like that. And that was his dream, was he wanted to be like all powerful. He was already working on these mechanized Batman suits that we saw back in the New 52 that Gordon wore temporarily. At this point, we got Gordon basically confronting this guy, knowing that this guy has been running around as Batman, killing everybody. You know, his version of how to save Gotham, kind of thing. And basically, we find out that Gordon can't overpower him. Gordon has been slowly turning to glass, and he's so fragile that he can't touch anything or do anything. So he basically outsmarts him. He tells this guy that his kids are in the car, and that when Gordon got there, you know, this guy blew up the car, and the guy goes all freaking out and goes searching for the kids. He should have known better that Gordon didn't bring the kids, but of course there's a bomb waiting for him, and it blows this guy up and ends up killing him. As you can see, it does damage Gordon in the process. Like I said, he was extremely fragile. But at this point, he does kill this crazy, you know, Armageddon version of Batman. And at this point, I don't remember their name, the priest, you know, whatever these guys are, they kind of show up and tell Gordon that he's going about this the wrong way, that he should have known the outcome, kind of thing. Who is the other person that you know, wished for the knowledge? And we find out all along that it was Barbara Gordon. Barbara Gordon was the one who originally started out the ritual. She found this watch somewhere on like the deep web or something like that, and was told that it can make wishes, and it all comes from this belief. And there's the watch right there. But all on this belief that, you know, Bruce and Jim Gordon are getting older. They can't be the saviors that they have been forever. So with this concept in her mind, basically she wishes for these things. She needed the other three people. They all made the wishes for the power, the wealth, the information. We find out that with her wish, it was the information, and that's why she's, like, you know, turning into glass. And it kind of plays out a little bit, but that's why Gordon is turning into glass, because he was affected by her. The reason they are turning into glass is because the world is so fragile. With the truth and real information, like it said that the truth could break the world, you know, whatever, and that's why they are turning into glass or whatever. But with this said, the Pinta priests from the fifth dimension, it said, kind of disappear, and they state that, you know, did they appear because of the nightmare, or didn't they appear because of the nightmare, blah blah blah. It's left unknowing, kind of thing. So we might see them again, but eventually Gordon does wake up. We do find out that this is all Gordon's nightmare, and that's kind of where it leaves off. There is no like, hey, this is gonna continue in night 10. No, none of that. There is a weird random scene at the very end of the book where they show a clock, you know, shop, a guy walking in there looking for that same watch. The guy says he's never even seen that, and sure enough, he looks up and there's the watch, and this guy buys it. I'll zoom in on this guy. I can't really tell who he is or blah blah blah, but supposedly he gets this fifth dimensional wish, you know, watch or whatever. Okay, that's the end of that one. Next up, we got Action Comics number 2, The Night Terrors. Definitely the fatter one in this whole lot, but it's 2 stories. We got Power Girl in the beginning, and this one I'm going to sum up real quick because it's kind of the same thing as the first one. It's her running from Omen the whole time. Basically, as far as she gets into this thing, she gets reset, and that was kind of the same thing from the first one. I'll kind of show you quick glances at the art. That's basically all it is, page after page of her, you know, running through simulations, it seems like, because that's what her nightmare is. And Omen, her girlfriend at the current time, basically, you know, coming out after her. She does all kinds of things to get out of this, like killing herself, you know, trying to wake herself up. It doesn't matter. It goes into like the infinity amounts of times she's tried to wake herself up, and it's not working. But eventually, lo and behold, she does wake herself up, and they find out that they're still in the mess. She does wake up. She kind of goes to Omen, tries to beat her up, and finds out she's real. Kind of goes back to her regular life, and that's kind of when she finds out that she finally looks outside and finds out that the dream wave's still out there, and that's where this one ends, kind of, because we get this scene right here with this piece of technology, our hermit crab picking up this dude, grabbing it, and they show this right here, this dude with this, you know, and it says that part will be continued in Power Girl issue number 1. So this guy looks like a brand new villain for Power Girl. Next up, we got the continuation of the the Super Family nightmare, and it's basically Hank Henshaw absorbing everything into this cyborg Superman scariness. At the very end of it, we got, Nat. She's still around. We got the Chinese Superman. I don't know if that's the appropriate way. I don't remember his name, but he's right here. And then we got the two twins from Warworld, and they're the only ones alive. And basically, at this point, they're running from Hank Henshaw, and it's not doing so well. Eventually, the Chinese Superman does get, taken out. He ends up dying, actually. And basically, the rest of this is, Hank Henshaw really just putting on the masker. Their world starts looking like Warworld. Eventually, like, Mongol pops up with all these chains, just like back on Warworld kind of thing. There's this talk about that, because at this point Nat's gone, and it's just Ortho, and I forget the other girl's name, but the two twins are left, and it's basically up to them, and eventually they do kind of realize that they're in this dream. They do start, basically, and it's not even that they find out they're in this dream, it's kind of Hank Henshaw, because right now he is Superboy, and like a merge of Crypto and Superboy, but basically at this time Hank Henshaw kind of mentions that he's realized he's stuck in this nightmare. And that's when the kids realize they're stuck in the nightmare, and they basically, like, start whooping ass like they should have in the beginning. And basically, at the very end, Hank Henshaw kind of gets taken over by these, like, versions of his dead ex-wife. I think her name is Terry or something like that. But that's the last we see of Hank Henshaw in this nightmare. And basically, the two twins wake up. When they wake up, the whole family is there, and they're like, "Oh, finally you woke up." And supposedly it's just like it's been happening. They've all been stuck in this same nightmare with the cyborg Superman. And that's where this one leaves off. Basically, them, stating that they're going to go help the rest of the world. That this will be continued in Night's End. Next up, we got Night Terrors, Harley Quinn issue number 2. And basically, this one, Harley is stuck in this, like, out of multiverse dimension cube thing, and she's got this person, telling her her nightmare comes. It's pretty quickly realized that her whole nightmare is she's afraid of being a hero. So her whole nightmare, it's made to look like she's the superhero. The whole issue, and basically in this world she's given super strength and powers and all the things that Superman has, but she still has all the intelligence and stuff that Harley had. It's this weird mock-up of, like, story of her being stuck in this old-timey, kind of comic book, and she doesn't like it the whole time. She doesn't like being a hero. She doesn't like saving the day. She doesn't like that everybody's, and it's basically, it all comes down to, she doesn't want everything that's tied to her being a superhero. It's not that she doesn't want to be heroic and stuff like that. She kind of already is. But at the same time, it's not what she wants to be. She doesn't want to be like Superman. She likes dropping curse words every now and then. And the thought that she would have to do this, like, all holier than thou kind of thing is basically her nightmare in a nutshell kind of thing. I am fast forwarding this because basically I just told you what the whole nightmare is. It's basically, Harley not wanting to be a hero, and that whole confliction that she's been going through right now of the anti-hero, villain, hero thing. At the very end of it, we do get the scene with, it's the one that's been messing with her in the multiverse. I forget her name. I'm sorry, I should have had this written down. It's really quick, but basically, we're gonna see that this is continued in, like, another Harley multiverse kind of thing, because this one says it's going to end in just Final Crisis, and it says right there, I'm not making that up. So it looks like, Harley's going to be multiverse hopping a little more, but basically, this is someone that lives, like, is protecting the multiverse or something like that. It's the reason Harley's been jumping through the multiverse recently through her main series and her spin-off series, and that's how it all got connected here. There is a side story that, started in the first issue, and basically we saw, like, an old Harley and a young Harley, and we kind of saw this, like, rotating, and that's basically what this is. We find out that you know, in this nightmare, to protect the multiverse, there is a ship that travels throughout the timeline shown here, and the kind of nightmare part of the story is what fuels this ship. Supposedly the ship's been on this track for like 10,000 years, and we find out that it's actually powered by Harleys. Like once every like 1,000 years or something like that, it has to pick up a new Harley, and then the old Harley has to get in this junk, and they basically die. At the very end of this, we see that it's a rinse and repeat situation. The young Harley starts turning into the old Harley, yada yada yada, and eventually, guess what? She picks up a brand new young Harley, just like we saw in the first issue, and like I said, it's rinse and repeat. Last but not least, we got Angel Breakers issue number 2. Angel Breakers on the run from this, you know, kind of Greek mythology, like folklore tale that's, you know, she grew up with or whatever. They're in this Cobra like installation. They're trying to grab this jewel, her and Raptor, that is tied to dreams and everything. Right now, they have realized that this entity is, you know, running around with them in the facility. The entity is kind of like Baba Yaga, but they basically go after kids. They have these like 3 kids that are trying to live, you know, they were found inside the Cobra facility or whatever, and now they're basically trying to get to the jewel, you know, so they can end this kind of thing. They know the jewel is how the Baba Yaga thing kind of appeared. I will say this one was the kind of scarier one out of all the books that I read. It was very suspenseful. There was a couple scenes where this Baba Yaga character you know, tricks a couple of the kids, and we see that they meet their demise. One by one, that's what this character is after, and it doesn't just eat kids, because eventually it does go after Raptor and Angel Breaker. This one's not necessarily a traditional nightmare because they have this stone that's messing with them. But like I said, each one of the kids, they end up getting, you know, killed. There's one kid that kind of makes it to the end. We'll get there. But like I said, there are times when this thing goes after the older people too, explaining that, you know, older meat is just as good, you know, kind of thing. But eventually it all sums up to Angel Breaker and Raptor finally getting to the stone. They eventually get there, and once they get there, they just like the other kids, this kid's fooled. He ends up taking the jewel to the like Baba Yaga thing or whatever, and that's not what it's called. I'm just generalizing it. I don't remember what it was called. But eventually during all of this, it's like this whole weird where like they realize like the second either one of them takes that jewel away from the other one, they're going to fall asleep. The jewel is what's keeping them awake, the only reason they are awake, kind of thing. There's a couple moments when the like witch or whatever is messing with both of them, but eventually what happens is they give the jewel to the kid, and they don't just give it to him to just go take whatever. They give it to him with plans to like go find any member of the Justice League. There has to be somebody that's awake, kind of thing. And with that jewel, they'll be able to like, you know, help out. Maybe, possibly, that's the plan. So eventually they do give that jewel to the kid, knowing that the second he leaves with that gem, they'll fall asleep. But it also stops that Baba Yaga witch thing from like leaving, and that's where this one leaves off. They show the kid leaving, and eventually he gets far enough and they both fall asleep, you know, on each other's, you know, laps. And that's it. That is my you know, Night Terrors review from all these issues. I'll hold them up, you know. Let me know what your thoughts on this is. You know, are you liking it? Are you digging it? I love this event. It's one of the best ones I've read in a while. There will be another video right after this where I'm going to do specifically for Night's End, the very last issue, so be on the lookout for that. That's all I got for you guys. Thank you for watching. Please comment down below, hit that like button, subscribe if you're not subscribed. All that stuff helps. Thanks, guys. Bye.